Hello again, YouTube. I have been requested to do a tutorial on the actual construction of this fuel system for a fusion reactor. This is namely centrifuging hydrogen cells to make deuterium and centrifuging deuterium to make tritium. One thing I will note, if you've seen my other video, you will have known that I use a solar panel here to power the sorting machine. In the tutorial I'm about to do, I am going to use a thermopile simply because if you need to make this design underground, you want to be able to power it underground and you don't want to have to make a hole all the way up to the surface. So, let's get started. I'm going to start out with aqueous accumulators, gold waterproof pipe, and I will get myself some centrifuges in a sec. This design is optimized as best as I can to properly provide fuel for one fusion reactor. This other fusion reactor here is using wolframium, namely titanium, and lithium, which comes from clay, to make iridium. Completely different process, has nothing to do with the fuel system for this. So, deuterium and tritium, I will probably later make a video showing how to do it with the deuterium and the helium-3, because that's more efficient and it's actually, it ends up taking less energy than this setup, and when you run those fuels through a fusion reactor, it doesn't use as much power to power the fusion reactor. So, this is a 7 by whatever design, because each of the centrifuges needs different amounts, but in general it's all 7 long. If you're in single player, or if you are on a multiplayer server that has 0 lag, and I mean 0, 0, 0 lag, you can get away with only making it 6 long instead of 7, which will save you quite a few centrifuges and a few electrolyzers. But I'm going to go with the 7 by design. It really doesn't affect how anything works, it just affects the size and how many empty cells you'll need to put in to begin with to get it to work. And of course it will, give you a surplus, at least it should give you a slight surplus of both the deuterium and the tritium, deuterium, whereas the 6, if you have absolutely 0 lag, should also give you a slight surplus, but in my experience multiplayer servers tend to be fairly laggy, and so it's best to go with the extra row of everything to compensate. So, I'm going to start out with a 7 by 5 hole. I put them in the corners here to start out with, so that this first row is 3, and then 2, and then 3, and then 2. Because this is an odd by odd design, you'll end up with, I believe it's 18 aqueous accumulators and 17 things of water this way. If you switched the grid pattern, then you would end up with, 18 water buckets and 17 accumulators. If you want to, and you're OCD like I sometimes am, you can go through and edit the configuration on all these guys to only have the top come out, but it really doesn't matter because they're not going to start spewing water into more water. So just fill all that up there, and then create a complete network on top of these guys of the golden waterproof pipe. Now, if this part of the design doesn't particularly matter, as long as you have at least half as many aqueous accumulators as you have electrolyzers, and as long as you've got water on at least 2 sides of all of them, it should be fine. But this is the most space efficient design that I could come up with. So, alright, now we need some electrolyzers. The way I power this, I end up having medium voltage power coming in, the 512 EU per tick. Maybe they call it high voltage. Yeah, that's high voltage. So in this case, I've got it transformed down from extreme voltage to high voltage here before going into my system. But all these guys are running off of high voltage, which means they need some transformers on them. So in creative mode, what that means is that I need myself an industrial electrolyzer here, and I'm going to need to apply some upgrades to it and then wrench it back to myself. So you see this one doesn't have any upgrades. It has possible upgrades, but it doesn't have any upgrades. You can use a regular electric wrench. I like to use the Gravitool just because. And now I need to get myself a transformer upgrade. And I will show you guys what happens here with a scanner. Okay, so if I click this with a scanner, you can see that we've got max safe input of 128. When I apply one transformer upgrade in not creative, this thing would disappear when I did that. Now there's one transformer upgrade on here. You can't see it unless you use a scanner, which now, as you can see, says one transformer upgrades, and it also says max safe input of 512. So at this point, if I try and apply any more of these transformer upgrades to it, it just fails because it can't anymore. There are HV transformer upgrades which you could continue to apply to this, and you could get it up to handling extreme voltage, but there are so many of these that that's just too resource intensive for me, so I don't bother. Now, what I suggest doing in the survival is to just place a bunch of these, apply the upgrades, wrench them back into your inventory, put them in some sort of storage system until you have all of them that you need. Now notice once I wrench this, it also says one transformer upgrade, and it will stack them separately. You'll have a stack of things that have a transformer upgrade, and you'll have stacks of things that don't when you're in the process of applying the upgrades. So I recommend applying all the upgrades to these things and then wrenching them so that you just have, in this case you'll need 35 of them, so you just have a stack of 35 industrial electrolyzers with the one transformer upgrade on it, and then placing them all, because that's safest. Otherwise you can run into explosions if you plan on powering your system with 512 EU per tick power. And likewise, you know, if you're going to go with the 2048, if you're just going to put straight 2048 power into these, I recommend putting all the transformer and HV transformer upgrades on these guys, and then, you know, wrenching them, getting them all in your inventory, making sure that they are all in the same stack, and then placing them. I'm going to get myself some glass fiber cable here and lay fiber over the top. That's how we'll power everything. With all this router, relay, crafting table, whatnot stuff in front. So, time for some centrifuges. Now, I'm going to end up doing the same thing with the centrifuges as I did with the electrolyzers. Get me a centrifuge, transformer upgrade, and this time I'm going to have to apply 2, because by default these guys can only take 32. So I apply 1. Now you'll see it says 1 transformer upgrade and max safe of 128. I apply the second one. You can see it's now up to 512 with 2 transformer upgrades, and of course at this point if I attempt to apply another, it just won't. Now, mind you, remember that these things disappear from your inventory when you apply them in survival, so you're going to need a lot of them. If you're short on resources, just make yourself arrays of transformers that just sit in place, kind of like I've done here, except if you're powering it with plasma generators, you're going to need all of these transformers plus a bunch more. So, now let's get rid of this guy. Well, I'll keep that just so that you can see. It won't stack them. These two things are separate, not stackable. And notice that this one says there are no upgrades on it, this one has 2 transformer upgrades on it. I don't want that one, so it will go away. Alright. Now, this needs to be 10 long and 2 high to have the appropriate ratio. Okay, so here we go, there's 5. So it's impossible to center it, so I'm actually just going to go out this way with it. You could get it close to being centered, but because that's there, I don't want to run into that at all. I'm just gonna go out this way with it. cabling will come out here, and I will be back when I am done putting up all the rest of these. It's just, you know, it's a lot of tedious work. I'm just basically going to duplicate this layer of centrifuges and some more glass fiber cabling. Alright, we're back. Okay, so we've got all of the centrifuges here and the glass fiber cabling on top, and these are what is going to centrifuge all the hydrogen cells into deuterium. And so then on top we're going to have some more that centrifuge deuterium into tritium. Now this one's going to be 4 wide and go down all the 7 length. Okay. Not entirely sure why it's like this, but this glass fiber cable is sometimes a little difficult to get stuff placed on. You seem to have to aim fairly towards the center. Okay, so those will be used for the tritium. Now this is everything in place for the machines that we need. So I'm going to go ahead and clear most of this out of here, and let's start working on the, well, I don't know what you call this system in front. Going to need some routers, relay, transposer, tesseracts. I'll get to that stuff. Okay, routers are the most important bit to start out with. We're going to have an input router here for to go on all of centrifuges. This router is going to end up coming out, and we'll have a router going in here, out somewhere over here, in, out, something like that. Okay, so we want to start with some upgrades. Router is actually a better word to search for. Okay, we need the speed upgrade, I think, so everything can keep up. I like to use the machine filter, but I think you can get away without it. You do not want the bandwidth upgrade, and for some of them I'm going to need an ejector module. Now, once again, these things don't disappear in creative. In survival you're going to need multiples of these. This one, since it's an input, I'm just going to put the speed boost. You have to shift right click it on there, and the machine filter. This allows me, the machine filter says only go onto the electrolyzers. Speed boost just makes it all go faster. These I actually want to insert into the bottom sides. Okay. If you want to get tricky, you can figure out, notice here, after we went to ways, we can say into slot 0, and then we can change this. We can change which slot it goes into, and likewise we can change which slot it comes out of over here. Let's put that one on extract. This one is on insert. This is where the cells will go into bottom sides. Only visit the electrolyzers. That will prevent it from ever touching this other router over here, because all machines who have one of their sides facing another machine are considered connected as far as these routers are concerned. So, just the speed boost and machine filter on this guy. We're just going to limit it to electrolyzer. If you want, you can mess around with the slots and figure out, I would guess maybe this one's slot 0, slot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. Anyway, you want the empty cells going in here, so I would guess maybe slot 1, but I have no idea. If we put into the bottom sides, the bottom side will stick it in this cell slot here. And any of the facing sides is an output side for these when automation is concerned. So this, we don't want to pull out from the top sides, we want to pull the south, the north, the east, or the west would work. I'll just put south because it will require fewer clicks if I just, you know, keep that pattern up there. So the empty cells will go in here. We will get hydrogen and compressed air cells out here. If we look at, this is how I know what's going on here. If we look at how to make hydrogen cells, you can take gaseous hydrogen, or we can say we'll take 6 still water, 5 empty cells, we'll make 4 hydrogen cells, 1 compressed air cell. We can look at usages for these guys. One of them will be in the centrifuge. This will be the next step. We'll end up centrifuging the hydrogen into the deuterium, and we'll get empty cells back, which we'll put back into the system. And then these deuterium cells will ultimately, some of them will end up being used as fuel, others will get thrown in centrifuges and turned into tritium. That is the fuel process there. So, this one we've got the appropriate upgrades on, just the speed and the machine filter. If the machine filter is too hard for you to build, it's going to take you a while figuring out what to do with the various slots, but you can make sure that you only put into this slot and you only take out of these slots, and you're going to need multiple routers because you're going to need one router to pull out from here the hydrogen cells and one router to pull out the compressed air cells from here, because otherwise that will eventually fill up and then it will stop working if you don't pull them out, and you'll end up running out of cells too. So this one, we want it to extract, but we also need a speed boost for convenience, machine filter, and we need an ejector module so it will throw it in a nearby chest. Now we want it to just visit the electrolyzers, that way it doesn't end up pulling empty cells straight out of this guy. And we want it to speed boost eject to the purple side. These color codes correspond with the appropriate side, so we want it to eject to the west side because that's the purple side. And then if I get myself a chest here, we can go ahead and set up the chest. It will now eject anything it pulls out into this chest. Okay, from here, I'm going to put a relay going into this router because I like to use the Buildcraft pipes here instead of the Red Power 2 pneumatic tubing. I do end up having to use it some, just for sorting purposes, but I like to use the Buildcraft pipes just because that's what I started out with and I know how they work really well. So the relay acts first off as a buffer. These can end up storing stacks of items which sometimes will fill up with empty cells. It acts partly as a buffer and partly as a way to transition back from the Buildcraft cells into going into a router, which is actually factorization. So we're going to get both hydrogen cells and compressed air cells in this chest. So we need to figure out a way of getting both of those out of there while sorting them at the same time. This sorting machine up here could be used. It would work well for that. But this sorting machine, the only reason I've needed to use it is because I need different amounts of the same type of thing to go to various places. Like I've got 4 of the deuterium going one way for every 1 of the deuterium that goes the other way. Here, I just want one type of thing to go one way and one type of thing to go the other way. I could use a sorting machine, but those things, especially if you're using thermopiles, kind of take up a lot of space. So, I'm going to go with emerald pipes. Emerald transport pipes kind of work like a diamond pipe crossed with a wooden pipe, kind of. And where it turns out that we make so many hydrogen cells that you end up needing 2 emerald pipes to pull out the hydrogen cells. Now, I'm going to need me a hydrogen cell for the purpose of fixing one of those things. I'm going to need a compressed air cell, and later on we're going to need some deuterium cells and tritium cells, so I will just give myself those now for future reference. Okay, so if we want this one and this one to pull the hydrogen cells out to go into a router up there, we want to say, okay, take hydrogen cells out. Now, when we power this, it will only take hydrogen cells out. Now, if I were to also put deuterium up here, say, this would only pull items out when it could pull both a deuterium cell and a hydrogen cell out. But for our purposes, all we need to pull out is hydrogen, so that will work fine. The next thing I need is an autarkic gate, or you can use redstone engines if building these guys is too complicated for you. It's also fine if you have them lying around. The various other types of autarkic gates also work, but the autarkic gate is the simplest to make. Let me just make sure that I have, that is not what I wanted to do. Okay, so it's a good idea to make sure that you've got the hydrogen cells in there before putting the autarkic gates on. Now, these autarkic gates are going to act like redstone engines when you set them up to basically, if there's no signal, emit an energy pulsar. An energy pulsar acts like a redstone engine as far as pipes are concerned. We will want the same thing here, but we were going to want to put a compressed air cell up here so that it will pull the compressed air cells out. And we end up not producing nearly so many of those, so just one emerald pipe is fine for that. Once again, redstone signal off, energy pulsar. So, from here, we're going to need an automatic crafting table if you want to use it. It's just an auto crafting table. That's what I like. If you like using machinery and don't mind spending some extra power, you can also put an extractor here, but there's really no need. We could use another emerald transport pipe coming out of this guy, but there's not really any point because we would just have to specify pull empty cells out, so we may as well just pull everything that we get out of here, unless you're afraid that devious people will come along and change what recipe you have in here. That should work. I can leave that in there because I won't need a compressed air cell again. Now every compressed air cell that goes in here will be crafted as quickly as it can, which is fast enough, into empty cells, and this will pull it out, and it will end up putting it back in here. I'm going to guess I'm going to need an iron transport pipe for this guy, and may as well make it a golden transport pipe, of course. Stone, cobblestone, you know the drill, will work fine here as well. Okay. Shouldn't have gotten rid of that iron one. No, we'll just pull it out of our hat there. Okay. So, now we want to go up here and get ourselves piping into the next router. To simplify the piping a little bit, I think I'm actually going to end up throwing the router right there. Just so that I can put a relay on it here, and then all I need is one gold pipe right there, and this is why I use the gravitool, very handy for multiple things. So that ought to work there. That will pull hydrogen cells out, throw them in this guy. Now we do want to insert into the top sides because that ends up being this right here. Bottom side is here. All of the various sides are how you pull stuff out of here. So this is top slot, this is bottom slot. We actually want stuff to go into the top slot here, so that's set up well. Now let's apply speed boost and machine filter to this one. Once again, I'm shift right clicking that. There's the centrifuge. Speed boost is fine. Insert into top sides. Perfect. So that should fill all these guys up with hydrogen cells once the system is actually going, of course. And at the moment I don't even have any power hooked up to it, so that wouldn't really make much difference even if there were cells in there. Okay. Now, going to want to pull stuff out of here with a router. Yes, we'll put it about there. Get myself a chest on here and apply speed boost, machine filter, and ejector module to this guy. We want to extract from, it doesn't matter, I guess for consistency we'll go south sides. Alright, eject to. Once again we want to go to the west because that was the purple side. I know you can't see it, but that's the purple side. If you are confused, take off the chest and figure it out from there. Okay, now the reaction from this puts out for 4 hydrogen cells, you get 1 deuterium cell and 3 empty cells. So in here we're going to end up with a lot of empty cells and some deuterium cells. Now the deuterium cells are what we're going to need to sort, and the empty cells are what we're going to need to take away. So let me get to work now on, I will probably have to give myself a bunch of this stuff back, but let me get to work on the sorting machine system and the thermopile. Once again, if you have, I need to remember how this is oriented. Okay, it's oriented like so. If I put this on here, that is the correct no, that is the incorrect orientation. Okay, so you need to end up putting the sorting machine so that these little gold, that did not work, so that these gold things are next to the chest. It doesn't matter what like you can put it on the top. You won't be able to open the chest, as I kind of did over there, but you can put it on any of the sides or on the bottom, and if it works on the top, you just won't ever be able to access the chest. The important thing is that the gold sides are towards the chest. Now, this thing needs power, and we also need to set it on cycle and wait until you've fulfilled the current column before going on to the next one. So in each case that was 1 click from the default, but little green arrow things and then a pink thing with an arrow. So those are those settings, and then you'll need to set these to various colors. I just always use yellow and red. I left clicked on this guy and then I right clicked on this guy a few times to go backwards effectively. That was how I did that. Alright, and then we're going to need a couple of emerald pipes to pull the empty cells out. I think we may as well throw those guys here. Yeah, that will work nicely. Iron pipe to connect them, and gold pipe. Voila! Okay, now I need me some empty cells. I will need that later, but basically here, only pull empty cells out, and the sorting machine will also be smart, and it will only pull out, ooh, just remembered something. That is not going to work well for me. Going to put that there. Going to put the iron transport pipe there. And voila. That is not looking particularly good. That's better. Okay. Let me make sure that these guys have empty cells in them. That guy did not. That guy did. Okay. That's what I thought. Autarchic gate on both of those. Set it to off, and energy pulsar. Now this doesn't mean that it's not going to work. It means as long as there's no redstone signal going in, it will work. Okay. Now, I'm just going to use cobblestone for this. Let me get my thermopile placed here first. Oh, it's not going to be as bad as I thought. In my findings, the most efficient design for a thermopile, oh, yeah, it was correct, is to have water on 4 sides and lava underneath. So, that's what I'm setting up for here. Get rid of that. Give me some crazy buckets. So we'll put water in here. We'll cover up the bottom. So you can see there's water in there now. We will need to do the same thing here. That will hold that in place. Alright, we want to make sure that the lava gets held in place. There's lava underneath it now. And just finish up the sides. Now, like I said, if you're above ground, you can forget this whole thermopile setup, forget all this water and lava nonsense, and just put a Bluetricity solar panel right next to this thing. Like you see, I have it over here. I just have a block underneath it to support the solar panel, and a solar panel right next to the thing. But in case you aren't underground, we need to have the ability to make that work. So the cable actually holds that in there. Now we've got water everywhere. Alright, Now we're just down to minimum blocks needed for that, but you know, you can have other support blocks alongside there, and as you can see, this is beginning to charge. And it takes a thermopile a little while to warm up, but the sorting machine never actually uses that much power, so one thermopile set up like this. You can probably even use less optimal configurations for the thermopile, and it will probably still be able to power this thing. The sorting machine does not use a lot of power. Okay, so now coming out of here, we need pneumatic tubing. This is where I'm a little bit... oh, that's right, and you have to get it out of not enough items in creative mode because for whatever reason it does not play well, which means I need to go into cheat mode. And get myself one of those. Okay. Did not exactly want 64 of those. Alright, now we've got our pneumatic piping and we will need to paint it. Oh, I guess I did want 64 of them. Oh, no, I know why that happened. Because I shift clicked. You can't shift click. If you shift click with this stuff, it goes away. Okay, so let's get rid of these guys, get me a router back, figure out, I guess it'll be most convenient to put that there. Let's get the pneumatic tubing going up to that, and then we will also throw it in, oh, of course, keep shift clicking. There we go. And then we'll throw it in a tesseract over here. I haven't got to item tesseracts yet, but I will be using a lot of item tesseracts to make this work because it saves on piping. So, this will end up being the other router. I'll throw it there. And let me get stuff out of my inventory here so that we can go back to making routers work. Funnily enough, if I could spell, that is the best way to find all the upgrades. Okay, now let's see, did I apply the upgrades to this one? I did. So, this one, because it's input, just needs the speed boost, and the machine filter, and we do want it to insert into the top sides, just the centrifuge's speed boost. That's all we need to do there. This one, machine filter, speed boost, and ejector module, we will want to extract from south sides and eject to the west once again. We need to now paint these things. We need to paint them to match these colors, and I'm actually going to need a few more deuterium cells. Won't need quite that many, but that's okay. The way I saw this originally done was like that, but I'm pretty sure it's fine if you just go like that. So, and this actually does eat cells, so you actually have to have 5 spare deuterium cells in here, but that's not a big deal, I don't think. Okay, so now I need a red paintbrush and a yellow paintbrush. I don't remember how to make those, look it up. And we want to, the lots of deuterium cells go up here to further get processed because it takes 4 deuterium cells to make 1 tritium. So this is basically giving us a 1-to-1 ratio of deuterium that goes to the reactor versus tritium that goes to the reactor. So this guy needs to be yellow. You might be able to get away with just painting one, but I always paint it all the way up just to make sure, and that one will be painted red. Okay, I believe I'm done with all this router stuff. So, okay, we are getting fairly close to being done with all this. All our routers are set up right. Once again, I'm going to need a chest to throw on here. Going to need some emerald pipes to get the empty cells going out right versus the tritium cells. And let's see, we've got tritium cells, we'll go that way, and empty cells will go that way. Power these guys up. And away we will go. Alright, at this point I basically just need to get some tesseracts going here. Let's see. Don't need any relays there. I don't think we need any relays into the tesseract from this system, but I always put one up anyway. Let's get me an item tesseract. Place it out here. Oh, okay, so it doesn't connect actually. So I need myself a relay. So you do need a relay to put this stuff in here. Those are my various other things that I was using for the other system. So let's get me an item tesseract. This will return the empty cells back into the system. Basically all empty cells go through here. Go through this iron pipe, go back into this relay, go back to get electrolyzed. So those empty cells are going straight there because that wasn't that much extra piping. These empty cells, shoot, I forget which one of these. You can take these off by shift right clicking them, the anarchic gates, and then you can see what you had underneath. Okay, so that was the empty cell. And which means an item tesseract goes here, and we will put it on empty cell. For the sake of this tutorial, I'll just put all these on owner access, and I'll make myself a couple new channels here. So, empty cells. There we go. So, that is on the empty cells channel. Best to put this on receive only. Receive only for the empty cells. We'll put this guy on send only. Okay. This guy is got deuterium cells going to, so I'll call this channel 2. We'll call this deuterium cells and send only. Now if I were to continue with this, this would end up, the cells, deuterium cells would end up going here. As you can see, these two guys are just set up with deuterium cells to receive only. This guy is empty cells, and so that will end up going back. And the configuration on these guys is set up such that you get blue in from the top, that's coming out of the tesseracts. The red will eject to the side that's got the tesseract on it, and the yellow will go into the bottom, which is the tank. Same thing here. The red goes into this side, blue comes in from the top, yellow goes into the bottom. Corresponding to these colors. Make sure this is set to empty if you do end up using a liquid transposer. In perhaps another one of my videos that I intend to make, I will show you, I've got a different setup that doesn't involve tanks at all. I just put the empty cells straight into these item things here. It's curious, I wonder why I did that. Must be some sort of map glitch. Alright, but back to over here. We were on deuterium cells. So, in something I'm not going to get to in this video, you do some sort of setup similar to what I've got over here. Just power them however you can. I've got an energy bridge here on some redstone conductive piping that goes through here. Just liquid transposers set to empty bucket instead of full bucket. Okay, so these guys will be the tritium cells. We'll put it on, set this to channel 3, call it tritium cells, too many L's, and there we go, send only. I would go around and double check that these guys are all set to send only. This one is set to receive only. Okay, so apart from the fact that this system is going to jam eventually because I'm not actually doing anything with the deuterium cells and the tritium cells, this system is ready to go. So it is time to clear our inventories and get ourselves a large number of empty cells. Let's just put this on 1024. That's awkward. 1024, and give me all the empty cells. Okay. So you say give me 1023, that's because I already had one, and then it must have used that up. So we will put these all in here, put more in later. This is inserting them into these guys as fast as it can. It has to visit all of them, which is why it takes a while for this to go up. Let me get the time back today. And when this reaches 5, this thing will start going. We've got another stack in there. Oh, it's got no power. Right. Completely forgot about power. Let's just go ahead and cheat with the power. Give me a bunch of these guys, because at night these guys don't put out very much power. And then we'll just connect that up there. Alright. There. Now they're all going. And these guys are still gaining power. I'm going to put up more because at nighttime this thing is going to die in a hole. But when I'm building this thing normally and I've got everything set up, I use a bunch of MFSUs to get it powered initially until my fusion reactor is going, and then I run 3 plasma generators into it, as 3 plasma generators are more than enough. When everything is running, this system tends to use about 5,000 EU per tick of power, which is a lot. As you can see, this is pulling stuff out as fast as it can. It does eventually keep up. The compressed air cells are coming out of here, they're going in here. You don't even see them. They just get turned into empty cells so quickly. They come along here and they go back in here. As you can see, now we're getting some empty cells back, but I'm going to go ahead and put some more in here because we've still got a lot more empty cells to go. As you can see, we're not done filling up all of this yet, but once this router is done pulling everything out, and once this chest is empty, we should see some of these guys start to go up here. Otherwise, that should be about it. I'm probably going to have to keep monitoring this and keep putting empty cells in as it gets low. And it might not be a bad idea when you first set it up to make sure that you've got a lot of empty cells in here, like maybe like 30 in each of these before you apply power to it. That'll give it a little bit of buffer when you get going so that you can keep putting in empty cells as necessary. So, that is about it. Remember to subscribe if you like it, post comments if you have questions, and all that good stuff. Alright, see you guys.